Welcome, friends, to this episode of the Sync Your Life podcast. I am so excited for this one today. I've been looking forward to this for a couple months now. I have Sara and Ben Jensen, who are the founders and CEOs of Hugh and Grace. We're going to be talking all about Hugh and Grace, which is not only their children's name, but the name of their company. We're going to talk a lot about just endocrine disruption, their story. They have a specific story with infertility that I'm eager for everyone to hear, because I think their story and their message and everything that they're building behind this company is really going to transform the way people think about hormone health. I just finished sharing with a group of friends yesterday that this is something that is coming up more and more in conversations, right? Like we really want to, when we think about optimizing our health, we think about the things we've always known, the things like dieting or exercise and the things that I've talked a lot about here on the podcast. But in reality, the things that are going in, on, and around our bodies, which is what Hugh and Grace is all about, is ultimately a huge determining factor in our overall health. Sara and I have similar stories as it pertains to really understanding, like in a new way, how our hormones are affected by the things that we're putting on our skin and in our bodies. And I think to turn this into an opportunity to teach and educate and also just give people the tools they need to make the healthier option is really, really powerful. So I'm excited to dig in with them today. I announced with you guys toward the end of the year, I think it was in December, when I made my exciting announcements, that I have partnered with Hugh and Grace as a proud advocate. I'm so excited. I feel like I got a message the other day. I led a masterclass for them this week. And I got a message right after the masterclass that said, it's almost like you created this company because it is so aligned with your message and your story. And I couldn't feel any differently. Like that's exactly how I feel about it. I just feel like this is exactly what I would create if I was creating something, and we feel so aligned together. So I'm grateful to have Sara and Ben here on the show. Without further ado, I want to hand it over to you guys. I don't want to do all the talking. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So share your story with us. Tell us who you are, what you do. And by the way, guys, I know you can't see us, but they're in their RV. They travel in around the country. And I love that too. So tell us all the things.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. I think you gave us about the biggest compliment we could take, which is, or receive, which is that when you heard the story, it resonated with you and it felt like it was your story. And I think that's so important that businesses, founders, companies understand, it's our job is to help facilitate discovery and for things to make a meaningful impact on individuals to help them improve their lives. And to hear that is a true testament of what our hopes and dreams are. So thank you. I'm Ben Jensen.
I'm Sara Jensen. As you mentioned, we're the co-founders, co-CEOs, and co-parents of Hugh and Grace. But I'll start with our personal story, because that's really the heart, the reason we started this company. Ben and I have been married for almost 22 years, and we spent 14 of those years struggling with unexplained infertility. We got married young. I was 23. I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids. That was that's what I knew. That's what I wanted.
That's how we were raised.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted. And so I think it was 25 years old, and we started trying to get pregnant, and nothing worked. And then we started going to fertility doctors and going to different fertility doctors across the country and doing a lot of studies and research. And we were diagnosed with unexplained infertility.
Which is maddening.
But yes, it's interesting because Jenny, you've had your struggle with infertility as well. Like I hated when people said whose fault is it? Because fertility is never a fault, but we just said, find something wrong and fix it. Don't tell me it's unexplained. Fix the problem. And so we did a ton of research and we learned about the topic of hormone disruption, of endocrine disrupting chemicals. I think it was my 6th round of IVF when the doctor finally asked, what skincare are you using? What chemicals are you spraying around your house? And it was really here I was altering everything in my life. I was an ultra marathoner. I stopped running because the doctor told me the running chicken doesn't lay the eggs. I hate needles. I was doing acupuncture. We had therapy. It impacted our lives in such a real and traumatic way. The amazing part of our story is Ben's sister volunteered to be our surrogate, and she gave birth to our son, Hugh. And then when Hugh was almost 1, my sister called me and she said, I want to try to give Hugh a sibling. So she volunteered to be our second surrogate, and she gave birth to Grace. So we have our Hugh and our Grace. They are little miracles. They're 6 and 4 now. We named them we're very intentional with the names of our kids. So the name Hugh means heart, mind, and spirit. And the name Grace means goodness, generosity, and love. And that's what brought us our children. And then I just felt after having our kids and when we were studying this topic and learning about hormone disruption, we were just thinking about it through our focus of infertility, because that was just our sole focus for so many years of our lives. Then taking a step back and looking at the research and understanding hormone health in general, how that impacts really everyone.
Yeah,
And that's where
I think
Yeah.
that was the kind of the aha moment, because it was very personal to us. It was very we were myopic. We were thinking our case. But after we pulled back a little bit and started reading the other headlines that were in the studies, it was when you're talking about hormone disruption or endocrine disruption or EDCs, all these things, as well as hormone health, you would see next to infertility, cancers and developmental disorders and mood and weight and all of these things. There was ties and correlations with the same topic, enacted differently, but the topic of hormones and hormone disruption it wasn't one thing, it was a whole body issue. And then at that point we started looking at it and say, wow, this isn't just like something that we're going to do to make us feel better about our struggle. This is something that could change a lot of lives if we were able to educate and provide some simple solutions for people to incorporate. Because what we learned, and Jenny, you can talk about this far more eloquently than we can. What we learned is that hormones run the show. Hormones control everything. It's the chemical brain to our body. It's the chemical messenger system. When it's disrupted, it's like sending an email, but having your address book shuffled. It can end up anywhere, and you can have all kinds of problems if you're sending people confidential information, whatever. Mm-hmm. That same concept, when our hormones are disrupted, lots of unintended consequences can happen. They're like I mentioned on some of the challenges, but it's mood, it's weight gain, it's energy levels. When you sleep, when you get hungry, all those things are controlled by our hormones. And so we looked at this and said, we need to do something. And actually, Sara said that. I said, no. Sara said, Ben, we learned about this topic. It affected us. It can affect so many people. And I said, we finally have our kids and I make a good living and we can be comfortable. And she said, we have to do something. And
well, let me talk about our professional backgrounds, because that's one of the reasons we chose to do what we did.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Ben out of undergrad was an investment banker, then worked in commercial real estate. We were in Las Vegas at the time, so the height of the real estate market. Did $1 billion plus of transactions. We then market crashed. We both went to graduate school at USC in at Los Angeles. I have my MBA. Ben had his MBA, Master of Real Estate Development. After that, he went and was recruited to do GE Capital's leadership program when it was a great company. So we moved back east, and then we moved back to LA for job transfer. And then Ben was recruited to run a multi-billion-dollar family office in Beverly Hills. My professional background, I've always worked in social entrepreneurship, worked for a few various nonprofits. But then my last role, I was recruited to work at USC after I graduated for the business school. And so I worked with our top alumni and parents raising transformative gifts. So, it was interesting, which is all about relationship to development. So when I was at nonprofits, I'd raise $1 million or $3 million at a gala, have a big dinner, do auction items. I had actually never sat across the table from someone asking for $1 million or $3 million or $10 million. But it was when we finally had our kids. And I think I also want to just preface this, because during this time, I think it looked like we had very glamorous jobs. I was traveling everywhere. Ben was flying private. We would host these, attend these dinners and parties. And Ben was running at the time one of the top Beverly Hills restaurants. And so all the celebrities would hang out there. And so I think outside looking at this glamorous lives but we were going through hell for 14 years. I kept my job at USC because I had the flexibility to go to the doctor so often and really work around our schedules. And so finally have our kids. I said, Ben, this topic is a topic that impacts everyone. And we have these amazing networks. And my job as a fundraiser, I'm like, I know how to ask you for favors. If it's not for me, I can ask anybody for anything. So I started calling our billionaire friends and people who I developed really deep, meaningful relationships with, and saying, who can you introduce me to? I need to meet the form and world-renowned doctors who we had worked with, who had agreed to back us. I reached out to the president of Environmental Working Group and I said, okay, I need someone for chemical testing. And he introduced me to Dr. Jenna Hua. She's the very first at-home chemical exposure test. She's on our medical advisory board. And so we said, who are these experts that we can connect with? And we did. We started, this is pre-COVID, flying across the country, meeting with the chief innovation officers for some of the largest beauty manufacturers in the world and saying, who can we meet? And can you do this? Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. Mm-hmm. The formula we end up working with for skincare, because we do have 3 product verticals.
Yeah, I'll touch
on that. But everyone, there's different experts that work on different product verticals. And so I remember walking in, sitting down with the person we chose to work with us for our skincare. And he said, the world does not need another face serum. The world does not need another body oil. And we told him our story, and we told him what we want to achieve and accomplish, and not just formulate without EDCs, but formulate to help people have detox, repair, and protect their bodies. And after we talked, he's like, okay, the world actually really needs this. So, and we haven't formulated like this before. And so we spent over a year going back and forth and saying, what would this look like? How does this feel? What properties? We want it to be a really luxurious, elevated experience that people want to use these products and want to keep using them for themselves, for their families.
Yeah, and maybe just Jenny, interrupt us if there's anything you want us to go back on, but I wanted to maybe speak to the approach that we took. We're not medical professionals. So we thought about this and said, look, you can get very prescriptive and start trying to tweak hormone levels and do things and work on prescriptions and work on things that really have hormone action. What we thought was what people need is first some education on the foundational components of hormone health, right? The things that you can do to positively affect your endocrine system, and the things that you can get out of the way that negatively affect your endocrine system. So step one is, it's kind of easy. Let's keep the junk out of our products, right? But we need to do far more than just be a clean company. Clean is what you're not. What are we? What benefits can we provide as well? And then how would we go about this? And that was, I think, what differentiated us. When we were going through our fertility struggle, the doctor didn't just ask what was the one thing, what was this one thing you're doing to body? He started asking about our whole lifestyle, right? He started asking about our diet. He started asking about the chemicals in our environment. What are you putting on your body? And it really kind of dawned on us. It's a combination of what you put on, in, and around your body. Because a high percentage of what you put on your skin gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And we hadn't really thought about that. I was putting on I had the most toxic armpits in the world because I had all these heavy metals. It literally stained my skin. I hadn't thought about what is that doing to my overall health.
Well, Jenny and I talk about this, just like I was rubbing these hormone creams on my legs, getting my blood levels tested the next day, and my hormones had spiked.
Right.
And so not fully realizing like, oh, these products actually, everything I'm putting on my skin actually can impact my hormones.
Yeah. Think about the pain patch or the nicotine patch. You put it on your skin and within moments, there's relief from whatever you're dealing with. And so that was like, oh, wow. So if we're putting good things on our body, that can be helpful. If we're putting bad things, that could really undo all the other things we're trying to do. You can speak to this, Jenny. Thyroid, right? That regulates your weight. Too much fat, not enough, right? And if that gets out of whack, no matter how much diet and exercise you do, you can't get to optimal health. Right. And there are a lot of things in our environment that start chipping away at our overall health. So that was when we looked at this and said, all right, everybody's body is unique, but there are certain foundational principles that everybody needs, right? If we can focus on the bedrock principles, how can we help people get improved sleep, right? How can we help people improve their hydration? Our endocrine system and our overall bodies, if we're underhydrated, you can't get the inflammation reduction. And that led to the next one. How can we improve reduce inflammation and improve overall, health in that regard? And then another one, I shouldn't say the last one, there's so many topics, but another one is how can we reduce stress? Stress plays it puts a deep impact on our body. People who are stressed have high cortisol levels. High cortisol levels are correlated with poor circulatory, high blood pressure. Also, belly fat, for example, it puts weight on because your body's afraid that it's not going to be able to survive. And so it starts doing things that have a negative health consequence. So our products are designed to really attach to these pillars. Some of products have 2 or 3 pillars covered. Some of them are specific. Some of them, are a little more general. But it's all about that idea of on, in, and around, and simple health principles that we all need to get a foundation for our bodies to have a chance to take care of themselves.
Right. But one study we read during our struggle is that the average woman puts on 12 products a day, which is over 160 chemicals a day. The average man puts on over 80 chemicals a day on skin. Then we're also surrounded in our environment up to 600 chemicals a day. And we said, how can we create products that, first of all, don't have harmful chemicals and can help protect the body from these chemicals, but also are very versatile, where you don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, I need to stop doing everything I'm doing. But we call it
Or
simple
I need a 10-step regimen.
Yes, no, like, so I love it. Like our day serum. And people say that they've replaced their serum, their moisturizer, their eye cream, their toner, and their vitamin C serum all with one product. So we thought if we can make products that are versatile, but do the work of many, then by default, first of all, you're saving money, you're saving time.
It's an equation. You're knocking down those numbers of unknown chemicals, and each one of those can interact in positive or negative ways with other chemicals. So the easiest way, without getting complicated, just lower the number. You increase your odds of better health.
And all our products are gender neutral. Our son's name is on the company.
And our daughter.
And our daughter. No, but I joke. I was telling men have hormones too. I was telling one of my guy friends who's educated and smart, and I said, we create elevated products that help promote hormone health. And he's like, Sarah, that is so niche. I'm like, how is that niche? He's like, well, men don't have hormones.
Oh, yes, they do.
Have you heard of that word before?
If you don't have hormones, you're not alive.
Yes.
So we'll start there.
But I do think the educational component has been a big part. When we were formulating our products 6 years ago, we were supposed to launch of May of 2020, and we did launch of May of 21. And
there's a little global something going on at that time.
Yeah, but I love also, and you do this incredibly well, but just with our company, we educate. Because people are now talking about hormone health so much more than they were 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago when you're formulating. And we're saying, how are we going to go to market? How are we going to talk about our products and create awareness? Because if we're really creating a solution, it's more than selling products on the shelf. We need create awareness. There's education and content, community, and products. And that was together really the holistic solution. And I love that, we were able to partner with people like you and people who can tell a story and tell your story. Our story facilitates other people telling stories. Right. And really being able to be aligned in mission and vision. That has been a very rewarding part of us for our business.
Yeah, so many places I can go from here, but I think
we just gave you a lot.
Stop talking.
I made myself notes. I'm like, okay, what are the things I want to touch on? So when Sarah and I had first chatted this fall, I remember when someone brought up the Hugh and Grace company to me. I had never heard of it. I did some research on it before Sarah and I ever had a conversation. And hormone health has been a big part of my journey. Literally almost 20 years of dealing with different hormone imbalance issues related to migraines, infertility, having to kind of fight my own battle and learn my own body really well. And, for me, knowing that, gut health was trending, and now I know hormone health is trending. And so the first thought I had when someone said, have you heard of this company? They're a hormone health company, was, and those of you listening who know me personally know that I was like devil's advocate. I was like, okay, I am not going to just look into this and talk to this company if they're just sticking hormone health as a trending topic on the company. So I went to the website, I saw their story, I chatted with Sarah, I dug into the ingredients, I started looking at how things are formulated. I started, really paying attention to the purpose behind this. And that is why, for me, it was such an easy yes. Making a transition in my career was not an easy yes. It wasn't. It was, but saying yes to this felt so easy because it was just like, this is what the world needs. This is exactly what is needed out there. My grandpa was an entrepreneur. He started a trucking company. And when he was 96 years old, I asked him the question, why did you start the trucking company? Like, he started it when he was 16. And he said, because I saw a need. He said, I saw a need. I saw that Southeastern Indiana wasn't getting enough transportation. And I knew that I could fill that need. He's like, I went and got my license. He went into the whole story. And I remember him saying that. And for me, it was like, well, what need could I solve? I felt like I had this entrepreneurial drive in myself. And I was like, what need could I solve? Sometimes you're so close to that need that you don't know it or you don't see it. Right. And so here I was like in this migraine infertility struggle for years. And also just feeling like not really understanding like what my purpose was. And when it all came to a head for me, it was like, I remember hearing this from my mentor. He said, you're most qualified to serve the person you once were. And when I heard that, I was like, the person I once was, or the person that I am, who am I? I struggled with. I'm like, well, I've really struggled with hormones, right? And even in my gym training days, when I was training men alongside women, I saw face to face the differences between how men and women would train. I saw how big of an impact complex hormones can be. And so I knew the role that hormone health was playing. I knew it went deeper. I knew it was something that nobody was talking about. Everybody wants to talk about, like I said before, like the exercising and nutrition and things like that. But when we're really looking at like the chemicals that are absorbing into our body and the things that we're around, you can't deny it that has an impact. So when Sara and I had our conversation and I heard her story and I heard this deep need to not only supply the product needed for people to make these simple swaps, but also the fact that she and Ben are so dedicated to helping people understand why they're doing what they're doing. It was an easy yes for me. I was just talking to somebody this morning and I was like, it's no wonder that people love Hugh and Grace and that they keep trying more things, because you guys are doing your due diligence and teaching them why it's so important. You know, like when you purchase something through Hugh and Grace, you're getting access to these master classes, or you're getting access to learning more about endocrine disruption and hormone health. I think as people are sort of learning more and more about this, that's one of the biggest things I want to express, is make sure you're not falling victim to just hormone health being labeled on something, right? Just like we see in the grocery store, we see something that says, all natural. Well, all natural doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing. So that's why
Cyanide is natural, by the way.
Cyanide in it. All natural. But it matters to me, and it should matter to those of you listening. Now, anybody who has listened to my show or who knows me knows that, like, I am not a complicated girl. So what I also love about it is just the simplicity. And I'd love for you guys to talk about that just briefly. You mentioned, replacing multiple products with one when it comes to your skincare or whatever, but I'd love for you to go deeper in that and kind of how you're trying to make this simple when it comes to making these swaps for people.
Yeah, happy to go into that. And we can talk about it maybe in each one of our verticals. So when we launched with skincare, and Sara talked about it. We had a lot of hurdles to get to market. It was a tough time to launch a business in kind of 2020. But we were able to persevere. And I think if you want to take the entrepreneurial side of the story and think about it, if you're thinking about starting your own business, it's going to be harder than you think. It's going to take longer than you think. It's going to cost more than you think. And you need to know and believe that what you're doing is worth it. And it can't just be a financial reward, because the financial reward doesn't come for a long time. That's a little bit of an aside, but I think it's important to note how the foundation of Hugh and Grace. It was born of passion and pain, right? And we've been through this. And we'll even talk about how we've marketed this business because we couldn't market it the way that a lot of other companies were. We didn't have the budget given global financial crisis and all these other things. So the product approach, we looked at it and said, okay, let's break it down to the most simple thing. If we're talking about endocrine disruption, we're talking about the interaction of known and unknown chemicals on our bodies. How do we think about that? Right? How can we reduce that? Well, one way is to reduce the number of unknowns and the number of products that we're putting on our bodies, right? So on is where we started. And then the second piece is hormone health. There are things that we can do that improve our body's ability to self-regulate, our body's ability to its endocrine system, which is a series of different hormone systems that I am not qualified to get detailed on, but I am qualified to think about this, and Jenny can hit this on nail on the head. But there are things that your endocrine system needs to operate properly. You need hydration, you need certain nutrition, you need proteins, you need detoxification, right? You need a reduction of inflammation helps reduce overall systemic stress, cortisol, all these things. And we thought, well, let's look at those baseline things that we can do and look at those from a nutrition perspective, from a supplementation perspective, from a lifestyle incorporation. And then the other piece was, all right, we're going to do all these things to reduce our chemical exposure on our bodies, right? We're going to try to improve our health from within. And then we're going to go home and have chemicals that we sprayed all over to kill every single thing in the entire world in our house because we had just gone through a pandemic. So we thought, how can we help with creating a better home environment? Because we spend more time there than anywhere.
And
So
you know, you have littles. They are licking things. They are fingers everywhere.
they drank some of our skincare. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's clean enough to, you don't want to eat it. It doesn't taste great, but you know, it's not gonna kill our kids. That was pretty important too. So we looked at it and said, if we can create a home care system that is very simple but very effective, that would be incredible as well. Because now we can knock down. You got the most toxic part of your day or toxic load in your house usually lives on your kitchen sink or in your laundry room. So we created a home care line that is one concentrate that can be diluted up or down depending on your need. More water gives you, you know, think of multi-surface. Less water gives you bathrooms and you know, a more deeper clean. So that was the foundational piece. And it took us a couple of years to get all of those verticals out for a number of reasons. But it was also important that we learned how to talk about this message. And initially it was more about hormone disruption. And then we pivoted to, yes, of course, we want to avoid hormone disruption, but what do we do for hormone health? What are we doing foundationally to give our body a chance? Because again, our bodies are amazing. If we can get out of the way and we can give ourselves a chance to succeed, we can get some adequate rest, provide some decent nutrition, you know, get some of the things out of our system that are impairing us. Our body is really good at self-regulating. And that was the whole philosophy behind it. Happy to go deeper in any of those things or to talk about, well, I'll speak to it one other way. The other piece was, how can we stack, right? So we know everybody needs more hydration, and hydration has become a lot more prevalent since we launched. We have a product that we call Hydrate Detox, and we'll probably remarket it because that's a little bit, it's actually a 5-in-1 product. It does tremendous brain health and gut health and even skin health, plus hydration and detoxification. It's an incredible product. But we thought, we all need more water. If it tastes good, we drink it, more likely than if it doesn't. And then what can we sneak in there that we all need also, right? So if we're drinking water, to properly detox, you need to be hydrated. So why not add a hydration component to a detox component to a hydrate? And then we need better gut health. Why don't we add a little bit of a gut health there, right?
Patented prebiotic, patented probiotic.
Pre-pro. So it actually, it's the biotic. I mean, it's the gut health piece plus the food to feed the good bacteria, right? If you don't do that, it can just pass right through you. So just think about this really intentionally, and then make it taste great without having a bunch of sugar in there. So we don't have any sugar in it.
Well, but you also mentioned simple. Like when we launched with 4 skincare products. We only have 4 products in our wellness line. We have 1 product for the entire house right now. And we'll continue to build on those product verticals, but we want people to feel like, oh, like this is something I can do. Like we have now the routine. Like people who care about hormone health, start with the routine. Focus on that. You'll feel better.
Foundational first thing in the morning or later in the day.
But like to keep it simple so people don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to throw it, like change everything in my life. Like, no, these are simple products. We have amazing reorder rates. Our HG Insiders, which is our loyalty program, it's free to enroll. We get product credit, but people are on there. Over 40% of our revenue are from these monthly reorders because people love the products. They're good for men, women, kids during pregnancy. Yeah. You know, we always say wellness, consult your doctor if you're pregnant, but you're not having to have different sets of products for different people in your family.
Yeah. I've got my Hydrate Detox right here. And I just did a little ditty on my stories that I'll share here too, that one of the things that I love about the Hydrate and Detox is it's, you know, people think, oh, well, I'm just going to have a water goal, right? Like we're in January this year. So everybody's got their water jug that they're toting around. They're going to start to focus on more water and movement, which is great. Yes, we need both. We need all of the above, but without the right electrolytes, and if our body isn't like truly optimized, right, then we're not, all the water isn't necessarily going to make all the difference. So finding an electrolyte blend like what you guys have, it doesn't have all that crazy sugar like we might find in grocery store sticks. And it doesn't have all the salt either of other products. So I like that it's just this smart, you know, blend of let's treat the gut. Let's also give you what you need with electrolytes, and we'll go about our way. Right. And I don't want to go, I'll do deeper dives here on the podcast here in the coming weeks and months on just the different supplements and what I like about them. And I'll go deeper dives into each of those. So we don't have to do that today, but I hope what my listeners are taking from this is making simple changes in your hormone health it really can be that simple. It really can be as simple as addressing lifestyle factors, right? Like your supplementation, like we've talked about, swapping out the things that are in and around your body, the things that you're putting on your body. It can be very simple. And I think a lot of times we just don't realize the impacts that endocrine disruptors have in our lives. I mean, my oldest daughter for her 7th birthday wanted to go to, she's like, Mom, I want to go to Ulta. I was like, what? You're 7. Like, we're not going to Ulta. And so she has been begging and begging and begging. It's kind of like, back in the day, I used to say, my kids will never have fast food. And then you get to the point where you're like, am I really going to raise my child? Like, and she's never going to know what like McDonald's is. You know what I mean? Like, I've got to show her some of the world here.
It's Americana.
The same thing goes for Ulta. I was like, you know what? We'll walk into Ulta. We walked into Ulta, and in my position, like knowing what I know, being someone who's very into like hormone health, I'm not into makeup routines myself. So like, I'm not an Ulta girl. I walk in there and she's like, Mommy, it smells good in here. I go, yeah, that's all the chemicals. So I was like the little narrator through the store. And so we didn't buy anything. she just wanted to see what it was because she had heard about it or whatever. So we walked through the store and she would pick something up and I was like, nope, 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 nope. I was like, see this little end cap here in this little tiny section of the store? That would be a maybe. I was like, everything else is a no. So it's just, women all the time, just coming off the holidays, people talking about their Bath and Body Works. And I'm like, there's nothing worse for your hormones than using, no offense, but using Bath and Body Works and these other brands that smell really great, but they're doing a lot of damage to you. So keeping it simple, making these simple swaps with the products that you guys have developed, learning more about the impacts on hormone health, I think is where most people should start for sure. So I want to touch briefly on just the infertility piece of your story. We have a fertility course launching at the same time as this podcast, the same week as this podcast. And I've been doing a feature recently on infertility topics. And unexplained infertility comes up often, right? It comes up often as a frustrating topic for people. I know it was our situation as well. We went through infertility in our journey too. And I have a very similar story to Sara, where I started using bioidentical progesterone cream and actually could feel a difference in my migraines. I could see a difference in my hormone numbers. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, if this tiny little bit of cream is helping, what is all the other stuff that I'm putting on my body doing to my body too, right? So very similar in that way. But I want to touch on this because for people who are maybe in this position, or they're struggling themselves, or they're looking to conceive in the future, share more, if you would, just about if you could go back, what you would have done differently. I mean, obviously, I know where you're headed with this, but what are the things that you kind of wish you had known?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to hear the man speak up first here, because I think that is actually the component of fertility and infertility that is least discussed, because men and their vitality and their fertility, it's part of our caveman brain to think that there's nothing wrong with that, right? To be able to reproduce is kind of something that you just come out of the gates with. But the reality is, fertility issues, whatever you want to call it, it's 50% men and 50% women, right? So if women are the ones who are taking it on the chin and trying to make all of the changes, well, you're only going to get halfway there, right? On the whole. And the other thing that I'll talk about with men is men's sperm regenerate in about 60 to 90 days, which means if you make some simple lifestyle changes before you're trying to have children, or in the process of that, you can actually improve the quality of your sperm, improve the likelihood of pregnancy, improve the likelihood that your child will be born without developmental issues. You can even potentially reduce some of the developmental risk that we're seeing so often in the world, because there's a couple of components. There's the sperm component that you can change. The female system is more complex, and Sara can maybe speak to some of that. But then there's also the in utero piece. So when you do get pregnant, what we're seeing and so you asked what we wish we'd known. I wish we would have known two things. I wish I would have known that I could make some small changes and have potential for better outcome and higher quality sperm by taking some supplementation. And there are male fertility supplements out there. We don't have that yet, but we probably will. And you can do a little bit of research on that, but there are certain things that you need for high quality sperm.
The CoQ10 or morning supplement.
CoQ10, our morning supplement. We have a lot of those things embedded because they're foundational hormonal things. So look, our supplements, our morning and night are going to help. You're going to get better sleep. You're going to improve the energy regulation in your body. Those things improve your sperm production. I wouldn't say it from a prescriptive. We didn't design it for that, but again, it's foundational. So it's a great place to start. And then improving your hydration, improving all the stuff we talked about. That's going to help. And then reducing some of the bad stuff, cut your alcohol down for, while you're trying to get pregnant, just the things that kind of take a toll on your system. Doesn't mean you have to. And I want to make this comment too, because this topic can very easily get overwhelming. One of the things that we decided early on, I told Sarah, I said, if we're gonna do this, we have to do this in a hopeful way where people feel like they can actually make a difference. They don't feel like there's no way I can make a change. It's almost like, let's say you got a pretty heavy number of heavy number of pounds that you want to remove, and you say, I got to lose 50 pounds tomorrow. You're just not going to do anything. So if you just do a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit. So incorporate something into your system, add a little bit more hydration, do a little bit of this, and pretty soon you've made really impactful improvements to your overall health without making big dramatic changes in your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that I just want to mention that we proudly champion the process, and the process is the destination. The outcome is a result of the process. So simple swaps, making little changes, progress, not perfection. That I think if you can keep that in your head, you're not going to get overwhelmed, and you're not going to set off that cortisol reaction because you're stressed all the time, which undoes a lot of the stuff that you're doing. And I think that was a challenge for us. So look, male infertility is equal to female. Some men have plumbing problems. You got to go in and get that checked out. You have to do it. I will say this, and one of the reasons I am still sitting here is one of the only men involved. We have a highly female dominated advocate base. It's changing a little bit more as we move into the wellness piece. But when we first began our infertility journey, I was frankly, and I'm not proud of it, but I was annoyed. I was angry. I was frustrated. And I didn't understand those emotions. But what the emotions really were was, well, this can't be me because I'm a man and I have super sperm or whatever. This can't be me. So it's got to be her. And then I have to go to the doctor because of her. And it was all wrong, completely wrong. And I'll tell you, it took me a few years until one day we're going through shots, and Sara, she's a strong girl. She hadn't cried. I hadn't cried in years. We just tucked our emotions away. She's a marathoner. She qualified for Boston. She can take pain. She finally just broke and just crumbled and trembled and cried. And I saw pain that I didn't comprehend, right? Because I wasn't feeling it that way. And things coming out of her mouth like, you should divorce me because I can't give you a child. And then I realized she was taking all of this on her. And I had been completely unattuned and ignorant to her. And so I made a commitment then, and I still am living by it, that I would vow to make a difference and to teach and share and be vulnerable. Because if I am, maybe somebody in an audience somewhere, or a man or even a woman, would see this and sense that it's okay and there's hope. And that was one of the reasons why I left a very comfortable career, making a great living, to start a business with my wife in a very challenging time. And that's why we've stuck with it, and we've done what we've done. And we do it for people to learn and listen and hopefully improve their lives.
Yeah.
Thank you. What I would have to say is, looking back, yes, products to go on and around your body. I really had no clue the impact that actually could really make on your health. So start looking there. But I think one thing that was just pivotal for us and all of our stress and therapy and marital stress, and I told Ben many times to divorce me because I felt like it was me. I think as a woman, we innately, like, that's what we feel like, we're supposed to do, is give birth to babies. But remember one time, even like almost 9 years into our struggle, Ben finally said, he's like, okay, are we gonna be parents? Or are we only be parents, or parents, first of all, or are we gonna be parents of genetic children that we give birth to?
Yeah,
You know-
yeah. I said, Sarah, let's think about this and I'll give the context. As we were aging, we were getting into our late 30s, even early 40s, and women's biological clocks have a curve that doesn't change much. And it's about 35, and it starts getting a little bit steeper and steeper. And so the pressure kept building, especially with Sarah. I'm missing the window. I'm not going to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to have kids. My fault. I'm getting too old. Da, da, da. It was just too much. It was really literally creating that cortisol response, creating that same thing that stresses the body that actually prevents fertility, right? You need to be calm. You need to be peace. We had a doctor who said, you need to think about like you're an animal that's going to reproduce. You get warm, you put on some weight, you get comfortable, you hang out, you relax. Well, that's hard when you think the clock is ticking.
Right.
But I had this kind of an epiphany. It's not a simple thought. Let's put it that way. Wait a second. Are we only going to be satisfied if we are parents of our own genetic children delivered by you that way only? Or are we going to be okay if we're parents and we can expand the definition of how we get to become parents? Right? Because the other conclusion was today, we have never had more ways to be able to have a family in history. Never in history have we had more ways to have a family. We had not contemplated surrogacy. That is not something that even entered our mind. At that point, we were thinking, okay, we're going to
Adopt.
we're gonna get pregnant, or we're gonna adopt, and we're gonna be okay because we want to be parents. And it took pressure off. It really did, because then if you're gonna adopt, the clock doesn't, it's not.
Or embryo. There's so many ways
adoption,
to go now. I think another thing that two things. Give myself grace, because I was just so stressed, pressure. And then being vulnerable. I did not talk about our fertility struggle with anybody. All of our siblings had kids. People come from very large families. Our friends had kids. And I didn't want to, I didn't.
Several generations of friends had kids.
But I didn't want to share because it was so hurtful and painful. And I didn't want people to, asking, well, the waiting game is terrible. You try and then you wait, and then for people to ask you those questions. But the very first person I told in our family was Ben's sister, that she asked, and I didn't feel judged by her, because I felt judged by other things, but she asked sincerely, and she's like, do you guys want kids? And I'm like, we've been trying for 10 years and nothing's ever worked. And she was the one who volunteered to be our surrogate. And we didn't tell, it actually took her 3 attempts to get pregnant. She almost lost a baby during the pregnancy. It was a very difficult emotional time. And so it was Ben's family. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I have 4 sisters. I was always very close growing up to my sister right beneath me. And the first time I told her we were expecting was Jenna was almost into her 2nd trimester. And she said, how come I had no clue. How come you never asked me? And I said, first of all, you can never ask somebody to be a surrogate, because it impacts you, your kids, your husband, and all this stuff. But she was the one who came back and volunteered. But she said, I wish I would have known. I could have helped you. And whether that been emotional help, mental health, anything, but just by sharing, and actually that's how we had our children, by finally opening our mouths. But then being pregnant, quote unquote pregnant, and then telling our friends and coworkers like we were expecting, but I wasn't showing, and like having to share that piece. We had so many people come to us and say like, oh, maybe it wasn't infertility, but it was something else that they struggled with. And it actually created such a deeper bond and relationship with so many of my friends and coworkers, where that was something I wish do it when you're ready. And because sometimes it is so painful, but there are so many people that struggle.
I'll maybe add to that, or provide a different perspective. We were so caught up in our pain that we couldn't see that there could possibly be positive in the process, in the experience. And by opening our mouths, it actually allowed, and it's kind of weird to comprehend. I initially said, when my sister volunteered, I initially said no. I mean, how do you repay the gift of life? I mean, that's like that's stuff that's just really heavy and deep, and she wouldn't take any compensation and all of these things. And I just felt this debt. But what we experienced in that process of finally letting go and letting somebody else help us. We're both the oldest. I'm the oldest of 6 also. And by the time we had our children, every single one of our siblings had, I think, multiple kids. So we had been going to family events for 15, 18 years and being the only ones without kids. But those people who we felt judged by, when we actually shared, we had an outpouring of love and support. You know, when you're not carrying, how do you have a baby shower? We didn't think about that until we were quote unquote pregnant. And my sister-in-laws, who we had always felt like they were judging, they showed up and said, we're going to throw you a baby shower. And it healed. It healed so much. But had we not opened our mouths, we would have driven ourselves deeper and deeper into a hole with no hope. But when we allowed others to share, they found great joy and great satisfaction in helping us. And we had to be humble enough to receive that gift. And it changed us as people. We became, I think, more whole as people.
Yeah, it's I didn't know you were gonna make me almost cry here, so it
Yeah. Well, I didn't know it was going to make me almost cry. That's our joke. I'm going through menopause. Well,
yeah, exactly.
Now, I do one thing. One of our doctors, his name's Dr. Brian Kaplan. He's in Chicago. He is incredible, one of the top fertility experts in the world. He is so, and he's like, I'm in the Midwest, and he's like, I wanted to treat a patient, I have to meet with their partner. He's like, there's a lot of men who do not want to set foot in a fertility center. So once a month, he goes to Starbucks and he meets every man there that will not sit foot in a fertility center. But he actually says, he's like, when I have Dr. Mills come into my office, or when they meet with me, they said, what can I do? He's like, my partner's like having shots and injections and going through so many things. And he actually says, he's like, start using Grace product. He's like, lifestyle. Use this in your home. Use this wellness. Use this skincare, because there are things that men can do, and they have such a better impact. So there are things that can happen.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated and overwhelming. Just improvement adds up.
Well, and I think it really, like, just hearing more of that story brings us so full circle into this of just how Hugh and Grace got started and how it really did come from this pain that you guys have experienced. I think the phrase you used, Ben, was caught up in the pain. You get so caught up in the pain that you're like, what do I do? I love that. I love the suggestion of becoming vulnerable. We certainly don't have time on this episode for me to go into like my story, but I've shared it in pieces on the podcast before. With both of my girls are adopted. And when we were going through our fertility journey, when you were describing that moment of seeing her doing the injections and feeling like, wait a minute, like, are we, I don't like seeing you in pain. Like, is this the only way we can be parents, or are there other options? Like, we had that almost exact experience where my husband said the same thing to me. Like, listen, like, we don't have to do it this way. There are other ways. And it was this breath of relief when he mentioned that, of like, maybe it's not all on me. Right. And so I love the suggestions of becoming vulnerable. I love the suggestions of just saying, like, the pain is ultimately what's going to bring you through to your purpose. And I think that's the overall message of today. Is you started out by saying, your story matters. My story matters. Your story matters. Creating a company like Hugh and Grace behind a story that is that powerful, that a lot of people can resonate with. A lot of people can say, yeah, like, I've struggled with this too, or this is something that I want to change for myself too, is really powerful. So, one thing that, I know you guys have to run, but I would love for you to just share, just sort of the business side of Hugh and Grace. Like, where do you plan to take the company? Like, what is your outlook? I know you're still fresh and young in the last couple of years, but growing very, very fast. So I'd love for you to just touch on the vision.
I'll turn that to the consummate optimist sitting on my right.
Well, you mentioned that we were in an RV, and we launched our business 2.5 years, so May of 21. And we had 200 advocates, all through word of mouth. And today
what's an advocate?
So when we decided how do we go to market, my favorite Harvard business case study when I was at graduate school was on a lady named Brownie Weiss. She invented the Tupperware party back in the 50s. And she created this platform for women, female entrepreneurs who back in the 50s who had never really worked before to create income. And at the very end of the study, we watched a black and white video of her on a stage at a conference recognizing women. And I was so moved by that story. And I actually flew to her museum in Orlando 10, 15 years ago, whenever I graduated from graduate school. And we were saying, you know, if we are truly creating a solution to an issue that people don't really know about, it has to be word of mouth. It has to be this awareness component with all the components I talked about before, you know, with content, education, community, with product. And so we said that's direct sales. And we said, well, how do we modernize it? How do we elevate that?
Yeah, and what we did is we looked at it with fresh perspective. So I had been running a retail company that we turned into an experiential retail company to facilitate conversations and sharing. We didn't spend money on advertising. And then I sit on the board still of a company that's a direct to consumer, ship to home products. And I was watching this concept of Facebook and Google advertising getting more and more difficult and harder to achieve, and less in control. And it was creating a misalignment of interests almost. So Sarah mentioned the Brownie Weiss story. We looked at this and said, well, there are components of this kind of Brownie Weiss, this network marketing thing that are very interesting if done right. And with technology today, we could take the favorable pieces of word of mouth marketing, pair it with technology, and with the company taking the risk on of the inventory and shipping the product to the customers, and not making people buy product and take on financial risk. And then if they were to suggest a product to somebody, they could earn a commission. Well, that's the same thing as if Facebook suggested to you that you should click on this thing and then buy it. Well, we'd rather pay people. If people are having conversations, we'd rather have them earn the income.
Well, you think about how we shop. You know, you all text your girlfriends. You say, what, you know, I don't want to get targeted at. I do buy occasionally, but like I ask my friends, what are you using? What do you like? And so that really is the best way. We call it more of affiliate plus because we have a few different options. We have retailers, we have affiliates, we have our advocate model.
Well, yeah, and each one of those, an advocate can enroll, receive a product discount, earn commissions. An advocate can recommend that same thing to another advocate, or somebody may say, you know, I've got a bunch of products that I like to sell. I want to be an affiliate. I'm happy to sell some Hugh and Grace products. I want to sell these other things. Awesome. Here's your link. If you sell it, earn 20%. And then lastly, an advocate may have a relationship with a local gym. The local gym may fall in love with our collagen product and our Hydrate and Detox. That advocate can help facilitate that and then earn off of the sales there because it's their account that they're helping facilitate. So we set it up so that it's actually a really kind of virtuous and positive ecosystem that where you're not competing against people. You're actually, as an advocate, you're able to kind of leverage every style of relationship you have.
You know, we want to meet people where they are. And so I go back to the RV and that we first launched, we had 200 advocates. And we told our advocates that we want to support you, get 50 people in a room and we will be there. And so Ben and I were in 60 cities the next few months. And then we said, wait, we want to see our kids. And this is supposed to be, you know, this business model, it's amazing that you can mix livelihood with lifestyle and you can be there. So the following summer, actually the following fall, we bought an RV, we wrapped it with Hugh and Grace, and we went from Los Angeles to Seattle to DC, Boston, and back.
New York. Yeah, Boston. Yeah.
So 32 states, 20 plus events, and the same thing. And we were looking at our travel schedule and we're getting so many, hormone health is trending and we're just getting so many inbound interests. And so we officially pulled our kids out of school. We have a new nanny who can homeschool and we
work together. Yeah. It's kind of hard to do that.
We're in Malibu for this month and then we're going to Scottsdale and speaking of Vegas. So like, it's going to be us being grassroots and really, but it's doing the growth. And so vision, mission, we have grown very fast, which we are thrilled about. We have a lot of interesting products that we're actually just talking to Jenny about some innovations and ideas. But we are super excited for this. And we talk about retailers. We have companies like Four Seasons reaching out to us, Waldorf Astoria, some of the Rodeo Drive Women's Health Center on Rodeo Drive.
Carrying our products in their spas and their fitness facilities.
Well, and the doctor's office.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of momentum and growth and we're super excited.
Yeah. And then just to kind of wrap that, what does the future look like? Look, we plan to expand this company. We'll enter Canada. We'll expand it internationally. The way we look at this is a topic that is for everyone, everybody who has a body, right? And these negative consequences affect everyone on a first order basis. You, your friends, your families, a lot of these things are right there. So we want our message to be broad. We want our message to be hopeful and helpful. And so our products, our message, our business model even is set up to sustain and to reward and to help individuals succeed, also by helping customers and individuals succeed in their health goals. So yeah, we plan to be a very big business because we have a very big mission.
Yeah, so good. As a new advocate, as someone who's recently joined the team, so to speak, I've been blown away with I love the business model. I think it's a brilliant move. I think it's going to be so fun to build a team of fellow advocates. I've always liked to be in community with like-minded people who want to really serve a big mission. And so the fact that I have a big mission and you guys have a big mission and they align so well, I'm excited to keep going with this and yeah. All the things. So I will make sure that I link up in the show notes for everybody, links if you want to hear more about the products, if you want to hear more about the company, if there's anything else, if you have questions for me, you can contact me directly. But yeah, any final thoughts before we sign it off?
We said this to you the other day. There are a few things that you can do to improve health from an emotional state. And one of those things is gratitude, recognizing the positive in your life. And by doing that, it actually can change your mental state, which can change even your hormone action. Can help reduce stress, can help promote overall well-being. So thank you. We're grateful for you. Thank you for inviting us on the show. And thank you for being a part of Hugh and Grace and for being so generous with your insights and knowledge and helping our community and our advocate community as well as us. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm excited to keep going. Someday we're going to have an RV right next to you guys. We'll just travel right alongside you and do all
Awesome. Our kids will love it.
Well, yeah, party train.
Built-in entertainment. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I'll put all the awesome links in the show notes for everybody to tune into. But if you guys, again, if you have any questions for me, just let me know. Otherwise, you guys take care. Thank you so much and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.